Hey, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video I have a good one for you. Yes, I realize I am just a little late to the game with this, but on today's video I am digging into the wildly popular ASICS Novablast 5. Let's get into it. First of all, I do just want to say that this video is in collaboration with my friends over at Roadrunner Sports. Now, Roadrunner Sports was good enough to send me this pair of the Novablast 5 for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say. They don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. With that said, if you want to pick up a pair of the Novablast 5, I will place a link in the show notes below so you can head over to Roadrunner Sports and get a pair for yourself. But this is an exciting shoe, and I remember back in TRE I went to an ASICS shakeout run. That's not really a shakeout run if you're not shaking it out for anything, but it was an ASICS run, an ASICS activation. And they had samples of the Novablast 5 there, and I did get to try them on and take them for a run. But since then, I haven't been running in the Novablast 5 until now. And finally, I have enough miles in my pair, and I'm ready to give you all my thoughts on this shoe. So the ASICS Novablast 5 is a max cushion daily trainer. We have 41.5 in the heel, 33.5 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. It is a neutral daily trainer. And for those of you after hearing that stack height of 41.5mm in the heel, you may be wondering if it's a little unstable. Not at all. There was not even one time that I can remember that I thought that the ASICS Novablast 5 was unstable, which is quite surprising with this bigger stack height, but it handles it very well. Of course, now if I'm looking at it, if I hold this up, you can see we do have quite a bit of sole flare here on the forefoot, and the midsole doesn't come in very much in the middle, so it's inherently stable. Now, for a daily trainer, the Novablast 5 is fairly light. In fact, ASICS claims in a US men's size 9 that it will tip the scale at 9 ounces even, or 255 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 13, it tips the scale at 10.7 ounces or 303 grams. So just 3 grams over what I consider to be a light shoe. But I can tell you that those 3 grams aren't making too much of a difference as I just sit here and talk to you. The Novablast 5 feels very light in my hands. And I think that's a big thing that's going to separate this from the competition. So if you are thinking of picking up a pair of the Novablast 5, you're probably looking at other shoes in the same category, you know, daily trainers in the $140 price range. And you may be considering something like the New Balance 880 version 15. Now, the New Balance 880 15 has 40 in the heel, 34 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. It'll also cost you $140, but in my size tips the scale at 348 grams. So it weighs 45 grams more than the Novablast 5. That's a pretty big difference. Next up, if you're looking to spend $140, you're probably also looking at the Nike Pegasus 41. Now, the Nike Pegasus 41 has 37.27 for a 10mm drop. It'll also cost you $140, and in my size tips the scale at 341 grams. So still 38 grams more than the Novablast 5. I think you can see where I'm going with this, right? But let's do a couple more. Next up, you're probably looking at the Hoka Clifton 10. Now the Clifton 10 has 42.34 for an 8mm drop, but the Clifton 10 will cost you $150, so it's $10 more than the Novablast 5. And in my size tips the scale at 333 grams, so 30 grams heavier than the Novablast 5, and $10 more. And look, there are a lot of other shoes, a lot of other daily trainers that cost, you know, in that $140 price range that we could compare it to, but there's one more shoe that I want to compare it to, and that's the Adidas Evo SL. And look, I think this is probably worth me doing a shootout between the two. And I think these are different enough for a lot of you to just roll your eyes and say, Matt, is the Evo SL really comparable to the Novablast 5? But they're also similar in a lot of ways too. Now, yes, the Evo SL does cost $150, so it's $10 more expensive than the Novablast 5. But it has 38.5 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for a 6.5mm drop. And in my size tips the scale at 283 grams. So it's 20 grams lighter than the Novablast 5. So 20 grams lighter and $10 more expensive. But they're also comparable in a lot of ways. But anyway, this is a review about the Novablast 5, so let's get into it. And we will start at the top and work our way down. And I want to hold this up so you can see this, because this is worth looking at. Can you see how padded this is? It is very padded. In fact, I almost want to say it's too padded, at least for my taste. I generally like it when shoe companies can whittle down that padding around the heel collar while still keeping it super comfortable with a nice step-in feel, so my ankle feels like it's being held in place. But with the Novablast 5, it just seems like it's a little over the top, and the foam is very soft. Now, that doesn't take anything away from the feel when my foot goes in. That heel collar is just, it's lovely around my heel. It's only when I'm looking at it now and I'm like touching it that I gotta say I'm just not a fan of how much padding there is there. The heel counter is very rigid, which is what most of us want, especially in a daily trainer. This is going to contribute to a good heel lock, and it seems to be working because I didn't experience any heel slip in the Novablast 5. We do have a heel pull here on the back, and if we go to the tongue, yeah, we do have kind of like a tongue pull here on the front. Yes, it doubles as a lace loop, but I would say that is there to be a tongue pull, just to help you really get your foot into that shoe. Now, remember how thick this padding was around the heel collar? Well, now let's move on to the tongue. And the tongue is not like that at all. The tongue is absolutely fantastic. It is fairly thin, not very stay thin. Remember, this is a daily trainer. but it's fairly thin, like not even medium in thinness. We're talking thinner than medium in thinness. And there is, a fair amount of padding, at least enough padding to stop the laces from biting into the top of your foot. I actually had zero issues with the tongue on the Novablast 5, and I quite like it. I think this was a good design choice and is obviously contributing to that lower weight. I'm just wondering, like in my size though, could I get rid of like half this padding and then maybe it'll drop it into a sub 300 gram shoe in my size? Something to think about for the Novablast 6. Now, as far as overlays goes, yeah, there really aren't any. We can see the logo on the lateral and the medial side, and that's just sublimated. Of course, we got that underlay coming around the toe box, and we have the reinforcement coming along the upper 3 eyelet holes, with the lower 2 eyelet holes being kind of like a shock cord ghillie system. As far as fit goes, I found the Novablast 5 to be a fairly high volume fit. I think of myself as having a fairly low volume foot, and when I put my foot into the Novablast 5, it did seem like there was a lot of upper all around my foot. Now, I was able to cinch down those laces, and I got a good lace lock, but still, it just seemed like there was a lot of room for me, at least a lot of room to grow, which is a good thing if you have a higher volume foot, because I think the Novablast 5 is going to allow a little more room and comfort for your foot. Now, as far as the toe box goes, which I think that's where most people complain about a tighter fit, I didn't experience any issues in that area. It was overall a very comfortable fit. Now for the upper, ASICS is using a new upper. It's a new technical jacquard mesh, different from the Novablast 4, and it's very light and very breathable. In fact, as I hold this shoe up and I have the light on the other side of it, I can see the light shining through the upper, and yeah, it's really good. Now, I have been testing this since the weather has been getting a little warm. I've got to say, I haven't had any issues with breathability. Of course, I've been sweating a lot and the shoes have been getting wet, but I can't really get away from that here in Florida. I can say that the Novablast 5 is very breathable, and in most of the cases, as far as the competition goes, I think it is more breathable than most of the competition. Maybe not the Evo SL. But anyway, let's come down to the midsole. And this is another big change that ASICS has made to the Novablast 5 over the Novablast 4. And whether you like it or not, ASICS is now using Flight Foam Blast Max, which is a much softer flight foam than the Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco used in the Novablast 4. But we'll get to that in the ride section. And if we come down to the outsole, ASICS is using their AHR Low. AHR is of course an acronym for ASICS High Abrasion Rubber. I'm going to say I really didn't experience any issues with the rubber. I am noticing a little bit of wear up here on my forefoot. Very surprisingly, I'm actually noticing no wear at all here on my heel where I usually touch down first. But also you see this rubber pattern up here on the front. ASICS is calling this a trampoline-inspired outsole design, and it's there to help deliver increased bounce in every step. Now, I am at an age where I think trampolines are very dangerous, but I can tell you from first-hand experience that I didn't hurt myself bouncing along in the Novablast 5. Of course, that trampoline effect sounds like a lot of marketing speak, but I guess it works. But I would say that it works because of the midsole foam rather than this trampoline-inspired outsole design. And let's get to ride right now. Because I found that the Novablast 5 is a very fun ride. I actually enjoyed reaching for the Novablast 5, and I did more often than some other daily trainers that I have. Actually enjoyed reaching for it and going for a run. Now, where I think that some people are going to shy away from the Novablast 5 is because of the Flight Foam Blast Max. It is quite soft, and if you like a firmer feel to your midsole foam, you can see how the Flight Foam Blast Max just might be a bit soft for you. And that becomes especially apparent when it comes time to pick up the pace. Obviously, a firmer shoe is going to feel a little more responsive underfoot. And although I didn't run in the Novablast 4, I have run in other ASICS shoes with the Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco, and that formulation of Flight Foam is just a little denser, a little firmer. But with that said, personally, I had no issues with the Flight Foam Blast Max. It was actually right in my wheelhouse, and I do like a softer foam. And moreover, I review shoes. I have quite a few shoes to pick from when I go out for my runs, and usually when I do workouts, I will pick a plated daily trainer or even a super shoe. And this is probably the best thing I can say about the Novablast 5 is that for a couple of workouts, I actually took out the Novablast 5 to run some long intervals and a tempo run, and it worked okay. I mean, not ideal. There are better tools out there for those kind of jobs, but it worked okay. And even when I was running fast, I mean, obviously I could have run faster if I had a different shoe on, but I was very impressed with how this shoe felt at speed. So if you were looking to pick this up, I mean, it's a very capable daily trainer. If I had to say what it's best at, I would say it's best at those daily runs at an easy pace. And because we have this mammoth 41.5mm stack in the heel, it's going to be good for long runs. There's a lot of protection underfoot. So unless you're really against a soft midsole foam, I think the ASICS Novablast 5 is a shoe to take a look at, especially because of that $140 price point. So now I want to hear from you. Have you run in any of the Novablasts? You thinking of picking up a pair of the Novablast 5? Drop a comment and let me know. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the ASICS Novablast 5. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.